Hey lovely people, Jonathan Mark Mendes, Painted Love, and welcome to my channel. So for today's project, I'm gonna take you on a journey where I have never stepped foot before. This is epoxy resin. Now, all of the years that I've been creating furniture, I have never attempted this. I suppose it's a little bit scary. And I've been researching over YouTube myself, many different tutorials, and I'm going to kind of amalgamate all of the information that I've learned along the way and take you on the process. So wish me luck. This is either going to be an absolute triumph or a real hot mess. So let's take a look at the actual table that we're going to work on today and some of the materials. So here is the project that we're going to work on today. This is a IKEA tray table. It was £19, reduced in the clearance section, X display for £13. I love an IKEA hack. Many of you might have one of these tables already. It's perfect for epoxy resin as it has the upstand. So here's one or two of the products that we're going to be using today. We have the resin, two parts. This is glass cast resin, which I picked up from Amazon. I also have weighing scales for accurate measuring, propane gas flame canister. So this is to take the air bubbles out when we get to pouring our resin, wooden stir stick and plastic cups to mix in, rubber gloves obviously to protect the hands. This little wiggly brush, this is part of my hairdressing kit. I thought this would be perfect for spreading out the resin. And at the end, we have some spirits. This is to clean away any excess resin on any surfaces and anywhere that we don't want it. I would say at this point, and I will say again throughout the tutorial, the spirits is not good near a naked flame. Be very, very, very careful when using these two things. Keep them at two separate sides of the room that you're working in. And of course, you will need a respirator to cover your mouth. I'm working in my coach house. We have two big barn doors, so I'm happy that the ventilation is really good in here. First up, I'm going to embellish this tray table. I'm not just going to pour resin over this glamorous price tag. We're going to add some decoupage. Now I'm going to be using Posh Phalk Deluxe papers once again. This is part of the House of Mendes range. I actually created this image. So there is another half to this. This is an A1 paper and I've used the other half for another project. So I thought this smaller table would work beautifully with this design. I've decided where my placement of this design is going to be, and I'm going to pencil round a line where to cut. Ordinarily I would fray the edges by using a paintbrush and water, but in this case it's a neat edge that I need. So I'm going to mark out exactly the edges of this table and then use a pair of sharp scissors to cut out the paper. What you also might notice is that the paper is not large enough for this design. We're going to address that in a little while. We're going to add some more paper on and do something rather special through the middle. After playing around with my paper, I am struggling to find a place to apply the offcut to the other side. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to split the paper kind of through here, like a river, a jagged river through there, and see whether this half of paper I can attach it to the other side. Sounds strange, stay with me. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a damp paintbrush. This is the way that I would normally cut out the papers, but with this circle we needed a neat edge. So we're just gonna go through from this leaf somewhere around here and kind of gonna fringe upon in a jagged way and come over here. So that's my place where I'm gonna split this piece of paper. And I'm gonna tease it apart. I kind of want it to be jagged, not too neat. There is a method in my madness here. I'm hoping it works out right. There we go. So that's one half. That's lovely. And now I've got this other extra piece to play around with. Let's see if we can do... I think I want to keep this leaf as well, just to add some detail on this other side. So what I'm going to do is place that just on the edge. So I'm going to pick up the tray again. I'm going to place this down. I want to try and keep as much as that leaf as I possibly can. I'm going to draw around again. Am I up to the edge yet? So that leaves me with another semicircle to cut out. As neat as possible for that side. Again, another jigsaw puzzle that we're creating with the decoupage paper. This is why I would always say don't throw any little pieces away of your paper, because you might use it on another project somewhere else. So now we have that wonderful kind of rivet going through, and I can manipulate. I could put it more to that way or more to that way, which I think I'm going to come more round on there, and I'm going to try and find another piece of paper that's just got blue background on. The only piece I've got is this piece, which probably, yeah, it might just work out for here. Just adding a little bit. Again, you've got to imagine where this is going. I'm going to use my brush again. I'm going to come into here, right up to the edge, right to there, and right up to this edge, right, fringing that leaf. I only want the blue section. And we're going to just move these out of the way. So as you can see, I've created this really interesting river through the middle. I think we'll go thinner here and allow it to be thicker there and there. I'm just going to mark out on the inside of this where I'm going to cut a neat edge here. Do I want to add a little bit in the middle somewhere? Maybe we do. Could I do a little island somewhere in the middle? what I'm going for is a little bit like a marbled vein running through. I feel like that's pretty good. Or do we go for a larger piece? We can play around with this. I think that is where I'm going to go with this. I've kind of got this interesting kind of shape going on through the middle of here, which I quite like. Do we put another island in there? Maybe. So I'm quite happy with this layout. It may change as I go along. Now for applying the decoupage, I'm going to be using Posh Chalk Infuser to put the application of the paper on. And as you can see, this table is white. You've heard me say this over and over again for different decoupage, mainly a white base. This has got an awful lot of white in the flower. It is so thin, it will pick up the colour that lies beneath. I'm going to start with the larger section first. I'm going to remove this piece of paper. I'm going to leave that down because it'll help me where I'm going to lay it out. And I've got a smaller brush here, which I'm going to be it gives me a little bit more control into that edge. So I'm going to go up to the edge as neat as possible. I don't want to get too much residue of glue on the upstand to this piece. I'm going to also go as close to wiggle around here. Oopsie daisy. We can touch this up a little bit later. I'm working quick because it's quite a warm day. Just going to apply a liberal amount. Now, because this is a real high polished surface, you can see that my infuser is beading up. That's okay, it will absorb into the paper in a little while. Chalk paint is slightly different, it kind of really grabs, it is as absorbent to the surface, but make sure you get plenty on. And we're going to lay this first sheet of paper into the aperture. So you've got a little bit of wriggle room. Also stretch with the paper, they will stretch. Just making sure that I am up to the edge. I'm going to peel back a little bit here and pull a little bit more that way. That's good. So when you are happy, we're going to move them out of the way for a little minute. When you're happy with your placement, we can start smoothing the paper down. Working from the center outwards. Lifting the paper. Take them out of the way. Making sure that all creases are gone. And I'm also pushing the fibres of the paper away outwards. That's going to help give a smoother finish. Now I'm just going to go over the whole surface with the infuser just to make sure that everything has absorbed through the paper and it consolidates as one. So the glue meets the glue underneath, and it will also make sure that any areas that you haven't quite managed to stick down, you will do this way. Okay, so everything has dried. I did add another couple of infills in the middle here. Now, you may think that that looks kind of quite nice, but I have another idea in mind for this. Before we move on to that, what I would say, before the process of what we're going to do next, I would say make sure that your infuser is absolutely bone dry. If you can leave it overnight, all the more better for it. I've left mine for 3 hours out in the sunny garden. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to add some gold leaf. And the reason that I'm saying make sure that the infuser is dry is if it's slightly tacky, the gold leaf will stick to the tackiness of the infuser, because that's what gold size does. It leaves a tacky surface ready to receive the gold leaf. I could go silver leaf or any of the other metallics, but I'm gonna go for gold because I think gold against this blue is gonna really contrast really beautifully. So let's start infilling all of these veins that we've created with the gold size. So this is the gold size that I'm using. This is rather old, this can, but it's still good inside. So let's crack along with the gold size. I've got a variety of brushes to do this. And it's just a kind of patience thing. We're gonna have to take real good care not to go too far, but I do want to go slightly over the frayed edge, but I'm going to use that as my kind of guide. Higgledy-piggledy along the edge. I'm going to go along one edge first. I don't really want any of the white to show. It kind of does give you a really good boundary for the gold size. Make sure you get full coverage. It does appear kind of opaque, and then as it dries, it will become more translucent. So the gold size has now had about 5 minutes. It's gone opaque, it's slightly tacky to touch. We're now going to pick up the first sheet of gold leaf. Now you can get loose leaf, which I'm using today, and you also can get transfer leaf from Annie Sloan. And I'm just going to drop this in. It's kind of a delicate thing. And tap this down. And rip away. I'm just going to move it along. That's stuck down, so we'll go with that. You can talc your hands as well, so it'll help if you've got kind of sticky fingers. Talcing your hands will help at this stage. Try and use as much as you can. Gently does it. Just tapping down, pressing down. If we're lucky, we'll get away with just 2 sheets. Keep all of the little bits that you might have just to infill. Okay, lovely people, this is where I slow the footage down. Unfortunately, my battery ran out on my camera and I didn't realise, so I lost a whole section. But what you can see me doing here is using a softer brush just to tap down the gold leaf, making sure that I've got great adhesion, and then I'm rubbing away any surplus gold leaf that hasn't stuck down. Onto the resin. Now, this is my first time using this resin, and I know that many different manufacturers have different quantities and measurements. This is by weight, 100 of the resin to 50 of the hardener. Slightly different by volume actually. It's 100 to 57, so that's a bit too complicated for my little brain to take. So I'm going to go by weight. That's why I've got the scales. Do read all of the manufacturing instructions. I've read this about 5 times. My dyslexic brain just needs a lot of time to process. I have to take my time with this. So that's what I've done. I've read really clearly all of the safety instructions as well. And we're going to start pouring out into a cup by measuring 100 of this. So whatever weight we get, we're going to do half of the hardener. So here we go. We're going to turn the scales on and wait for it to come up. This is grams, so I'm going to place the cup on. The cup's 10 grams, so we're going to minus the cup. So now we're good to go with This is the resin. So we're going to pour some resin in. I'm going to go for about somewhere up here in full quantity. So I'm going to eyeball it. In goes the resin. It's knowing how much you're going to mix for the surface area. Some of the different resins will have a gauge for the amount of space that you're going to be covering. I want it to be quite thick though, quite glassy. So I'm going to go to 150, which makes my mathematics easier. 75. There we go, 150. So in with the hardener, we're going to go back to 0, take the weight out, and then we're going to go back in with the hardener to 75 grams. It really is most important that you get the right amount of each product. 70, 72, 74, a little bit more, 75, bang on. So now the process begins. Get rid of the scale. And we're going to put a wooden stick in, make sure everything's clean. You need to be in a dust free environment. And I suppose at this stage, what I would say is all of the different tutorials that I've found have said, just take your time over this. No point frantically mixing. It adds more bubbles. But you really need to be mixing for about 5 minutes to make sure the two things are very well incorporated. So I'm just going to take my time over this and mix away. Making sure to scrape the sides and the base of the container to make sure that everything really incorporates super good. So after around 5 minutes of mixing, and guys, I did forget my gloves when mixing, but remember to put your gloves on. I've now got them on and we're good to do our resin pour. Make sure that your surface is completely dust free, nothing in there, completely clean, which I've done with a close eye. And we're just gonna tip the resin over the surface, slightly a little bit away from the edges of the tray, and hopefully we won't need any spirits to clean up. So if you're careful, you should be able to manage not to, and let's go for it. I'm not going to scrape the jar out. I'm just going to leave that. I'm just going to tip it in, because if there is any non-mixed resin in there, you're not going to add it to this. So if there's a little bit of residue where you didn't quite get your mixing well enough, you're not going to add it to your pour. Take them out of the way. Now for my little hairdressing tool. Whether this will work or not, I don't know. I thought the little serrated edge would really help, and I think it does, yes. So when you're doing a pour of resin, you may need a leveler tool to check your surface. Of course, this will find its natural level. My workbench is perfectly level. That's why I moved to this side of the workshop, because the actual bench that I work on the other side of the room, the floor is so unlevel. I needed to come to this side of the room to use this. So I'm just kind of teasing it to the edge. This tool is quite good. So the final thing to do with this now is use a heat gun or a propane gas canister. Heat guns kind of blow and move things around, so probably to take any air bubbles out, although this looks absolutely immaculate, we're just going to give it a quick jet over with the propane gas canister. So that's just about it, guys. All that's left to do now is leave this to dry. Like I said, on a flat surface, I'm going to cover this over. I'm just going to check that there is no more air bubbles anywhere else by spinning round. Now, I am in my workshop. I know that there is a lot of dust and debris in here and insects. So I don't want anything to land in my project. So I'm going to cover over with a piece of cardboard just until the whole thing dries. So we're now day 2 of my resin project, and when I woke up this morning and entered the workshop, I was really apprehensive of how well this would have turned out. I can honestly say that it is absolutely awesome. There were 2 anomalies, one of which was an air bubble that I missed. The light in here was quite poor last night, but had I have seen it, I would have taken a pin and just burst that one bubble. It is on the floral side, so it's kind of a bit invisible. The other thing is one of my cuts to the edge of the blue side of my decoupage paper, slightly wobbly, and I am picking fault. Just remember that that all needs to be good before the resin goes over, because there's no fixing of that once this is set. Let me show you some of the shine. You can see in the workshop lights there, you get a real high shine. So guys, if you're going to attempt to use resin, just go and do it. I was really thinking that this process was going to be quite tough and difficult, but actually when you get into the flow of it, and I think it'll only take one time, so that you remember just how that process is. And I'm going to use it again. I'm really chuffed. So I hope you enjoy the end shots. I will catch you all next time. Take care.